And this is what is about to happen. For instance, if we come over to Facebook, you notice how my Facebook is green, right? You won't really necessarily see this every time you get to other people's Facebook pages. So how did I go about doing this? The first thing that I did is I opened the developer tools. Whoa, look at Facebook's dome. It's so massive. So I knew that whatever script I had to create it using this rule. Those are the sort of things that you can actually be able to do once you master or gain a certain level to whatever degree mastery over web developer tools. When an HTML document is downloaded by a browser, it is represented in the browser using the Document Object Model, or DOM. The DOM represents the document as a tree, where the HTML elements that make up the tree are represented as objects that can then be manipulated using a scripting language such as JavaScript. In this lesson, we will learn about the DOM and also have our first look into debugging web pages using browser development tools. When an HTML document is loaded into a browser, it is represented in the browser as a tree of nodes. Each node, generally speaking, represents a single HTML element and is an object. This tree is known as the Document Object Model, or simply DOM. Let's consider a simple HTML document and see how its DOM is constructed in the browser. The first node is the document node. The document node then has the doc type and the HTML child nodes. And then it continues going through each element and forms a node for each element until the entire document is passed into the browser in this tree of node objects. Now let's head over to our source code editor and create this simple HTML document and then use browser developer tools to see what the DOM looks like, and at the same time get our first look at developer tools that come with the browser. Alright, let's create this simple document. As always, we start with the doc type, followed by the HTML element, which holds everything, which in turn always has in it two sibling elements, which is the head and the body elements. And then inside the head, have the title, close it off. Then inside the body, start off with the h1, and then the first p, paragraph element. Then I will just copy and paste. Then let's save it. Maybe we can call it simple page .html and save that as. Alright, there we go. Okay, so now let's go and open the page. Let's see, tutorial demos, simple page, and there it is. Okay, you can see my title, the h1 element, and two paragraphs. So now we are going to use Chrome's developer tools so that we can actually see this page's DOM and see how we can manipulate the DOM using the tools. And also we'll start look a little bit just to give you a sneak preview into a little bit of CSS and a little bit of JavaScript, so that you can actually see how you would use these tools to start developing your page and see how certain things will affect the page when you change certain CSS rules or or you apply certain JavaScripts to your page. Okay, so how do you access the web developer tools in Chrome? By the way, web developer tools in all the major browsers, I spend most of my time using Chrome. But I use Firefox and Internet Explorer. Sometimes I even use Opera as well. And in all these browsers, they all have web developer tools in them. But I spend most of my time in Chrome, so I'm going to show you Chrome. And I mean, Chrome is kind of like the best. Google should pay me. Anyways, so how do you get to the web developer tools? You come over here, you see these three dots, click on them, and then more tools, and then there it is, developer tools. And as you can see, there's a shortcut for it, Control-Shift-I. If you press on your keyboard Control-Shift-I, it will have the same effect. So when you want to turn it on or turn it off, you can keep on using Control-Shift-I. It'll turn it on and turn it off. Maybe I'll quickly show you that example. Anyways, let's click on it. Boom. So these are what developer tools look like. And by the way, let's see. I'm trying to show. Okay, let me just expand this a little bit more. I'm trying to remember. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. You notice that on mine, it's, oh, by the way, since this thing is white and this one's background is white, you can't quite see the distinction between the page itself and where the developer tools actually start. So over here, I like having mine on the right hand side, but you can actually come here, dock side, and put it to the left if you want. You see now the developer tools are on the left. Or you can put it at the bottom if you'd like. Now they're at the bottom, or you could use them as a separate. You see now they are separated from the page itself. But anyways, I like having them to the right over here. Okay, now remember what I said, Control-Shift-I. I'm pressing Control-Shift-I. It hides them, shows them again, hides them, shows them again. So because sometimes you want to do a bit of changes over here and then quickly hide them so that you can view your page. Even press F11 when you want to go full screen, F11 back. Anyways, okay, so let's bring them back up. Okay, now this of course is the first time that we're dealing with web developer tools. Oh, look at that, it created a line now. Weird inconsistency, Chrome. Anyways, so the this is the first time, but definitely not the last time, that I'm going to be taking you through the web developer tools that come with browsers, in particular the Chrome browser, because more especially as we start diving deep into CSS and as we start diving deep into JavaScript, your ability to effectively use this tool is going to be crucial in you being able to be a web developer that is effective. So for now, I'm probably going to, is it possible? Yeah, we can move them. The two main tabs that we're going to look into for now, maybe we'll look into the source one as well a bit, is the element and console one. Source one. Okay, so the elements, you see, this actually shows you your DOM. So remember what we said? When you write your HTML page, right, in your HTML document, and then it's loaded, and that's where our document is located in my PC. That's the document. When it's then loaded on the browser creates a tree. You notice how it has the doc type element, which is the first node. And then next to it, it has the HTML element. And then inside the HTML element, there's the head and there's the body. I'm surprised that you can't actually collapse the HTML element. You notice how these are collapsed. This shows that the head element has children inside of it. In this case, one child, just the title node, which contains a text node. By the way, the text itself is also a node, it's a node. You'll see that just in a moment. So then there's also the body, which has three elements. You notice how this cool thing that as you hover over an element, it highlights it. So for instance, you see, and by the way, you notice that the head, nothing happens. Remember what we said about the head? The head does not show the content that's in the head, including the head itself, is not visible in the browser area over here. It contains stuff like, for instance, the title and other things like links to CSS file, JavaScript, a link to your favicon, information about the page, title, etc. We covered this in our last lesson, or in a previous lesson. Whereas the body, when you see now, when you get to the body, it starts highlighting it. So the DOM, you can actually manipulate it. So whatever you do in the DOM, of course, is not going to affect the original document itself. The document is sitting wherever it's sitting, usually in a remote server somewhere, maybe across the world from where your computer is. You download the page, it's then downloaded into your browser, and then it's represented in your browser. Now your local, that is to say the version that you have locally in your PC, in your browser, your local version of that site, you can then manipulate, or it can be manipulated by JavaScript, or you can come and say, let's say for instance here, notice that if I right click, I can say delete element. Look at that. So you see now the first paragraph element was deleted. I can Control Z, undo that to bring it back. You see, I'd imagine that you are beginning already to see the power in this. So I don't have to go back to the document and edit when I want to quickly see what a particular change will do. Now, let's say we started getting into CSS. Now, don't worry about the syntax, that is to say the way in which it's written, because we will have like a whole series on CSS. I'm just using this as an example. Let's say as far as our heading element, and by the way, notice here, this is CSS. You see over here, it says styles. This is showing you the CSS rules, user age and style sheet. So this is showing you the rules that are automatically applied on all H1 elements by the Chrome browser. That's why I don't like some of these rules. For instance, you notice that all H1 element, the font weight is bold. So let's say I don't want my H1 element to have this bold font. I can come here and say I'm targeting this particular element. I want to say font weight, it should be normal. You see how that changed it from the bold. I can untick that. See that it was bold. I've unticked, so that means the style is no longer applied, or it's commented out. And then if I take it back, there you go. It's normal now. It's no longer bold. Furthermore, let's say I wanted to say the font style should be italic. See now my H1 element has italic, and as you can see already, it adjusted the element. So if, for instance, now let's say we liked how this H1 element looks, after I've developed it like so, I could either grab this style like so, or I could even come here, right click and say edit as HTML element. So that will give me all of this, and then I'll grab it, and then I'll come back over here, and then I'll replace this H1 element. Of course, I may have to clean it up a bit, remove those spaces. And then if I save it and then go back and then refresh, you see now that style is applied. So in other words, I was able to manipulate it here and immediately see, okay, what's the effect of doing this and doing that using the web developer tools. I'm adjusting the DOM, which is the representation of my web page on the browser or in the browser, and then I can see, okay, I like this, I like this, I like it like this, whatever the case may be. Let's say even more so, I say, maybe I want to change the color to, I don't know, orange or maybe green. Maybe I changed my mind. No, I want to remove this thing. Let's keep the default bold. Okay, I'm liking that. So I then go back and say I'm removing this because I saw how it looks, and then now I want to persist it, so I go back to the original document. So you do this in the document in the server after you've tested it. Color green, and then now it's persisted. So whenever a person visits my page now, since I've changed the source document itself, the source code, it will appear like this. Now, what about JavaScript? So now you can come over here. Of course, JavaScript files, typically what happens is that you would include JavaScript files on the page itself somewhere, and those JavaScript files or actual JavaScript code in the page, again, that's when a later lesson where we'll get into details as far as this is concerned. But in any case, once you include that JavaScript, it would then be able to do a bunch of things such as manipulate the DOM, delete elements, add new elements after that is to say it would be doing these things after the page is already loaded on the browser, add new elements, delete new elements, etc. But for the sake of our example, when you come here to the console, you are able to actually execute some JavaScript in the same way that you are able to come here and play around with some CSS to see how it will change your page before you actually go and then write it on your actual file. In like manner, before you actually go and write a JavaScript file or include JavaScript on your page, you can come here using the web developer tools and say, for instance, do I have code to, let's say I wanted code to change after the page is already loaded. For whatever reason, I wanted to change the color of the H1 element. So you would do something like this. Document, remember we said document is the first node. That's the document node. If you expand it, you see it contains everything. So we'll say document dot get elements by tag name. They'll say H1. Now you notice this actually returns an array. And by the way, in JavaScript or generally in programming, arrays when they count, they don't start from 1, they start from 0. We'll get into that at a later stage. So in any case, so that returns an array. So I'll say give back that element in position 0, and there's our H1 element. So given that I have my H1 element, and by the way, guys, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Don't let all of this intimidate you. We will get to a point whereby we will explain all of these things in more details. The zeros will spend time to explain why it's 0 and all of that. It's fine. I'm just showing you a sneak preview into the sort of things that you can use the web developer tools for. Okay, anyways. So now we know that this represents our H1 element, and then we go and say style, and then we say color is equal to change it to pink, and there we go. It's changed. I don't know, pink is not very visible, so what's another dark color against a white background? Let's see, what, blue, and there we go. My header has changed. So now we've used JavaScript to affect a particular element and then change its CSS style. So as you can see, the web developer tools, and then now that I have the script, I know this is the script that I would need to run, and then I could go back to my page and then say I would maybe include script here, or maybe I'll include it. By the way, you can include scripts over here. I think I mentioned this in a previous lesson, but you can also include script inside the body tag. We'll explain the differences, pros and cons of including scripts where, etc. But for now, I'm just going to include it here because I want the script to run after the entire document has already loaded. If I come and put the script here and I'm trying to target the H1 element which has not yet loaded in the browser, then it's going to be like, okay, like what's up? In fact, let's actually try that out. Actually, I haven't done this in a while. So now you see I copied that style over here, which I had seen that, okay, it actually works. So now I'm going to, so all we're doing is we're affecting the DOM. We're affecting the DOM. You see that thing changed. You notice how this thing changes the DOM, even though the original document has not changed. by the way. Okay, I haven't saved yet, it's fine. But as I run script, if I change that to orange and then I come back to the dome, you see it's changed, color has changed. So that's all we're doing. We spoke about the dome, and then we're seeing how we can use web developer tools to actually change the dome after the page is already loaded on the browser. Okay, so right, so I'm going to save this, but before we put it here, let's see what happens if I try to put the script over here, because when it gets to here, it's loading, right? It goes load that, load that, load that, load that, and then you like executing the script immediately, and then it's gonna be like, wait a minute, I haven't loaded any h1 element. So let's see if I remember right. I didn't actually test this. Let's see, F5. Okay, so it didn't actually change that to blue because there is no h1 element that is loaded as of yet when that script has been executed. And when we look at elements, we know that the script is here. Here it is over here, but it doesn't affect anything. So now we come back and we take the script and we put it in the body. So this is after everything has loaded. Or in fact, we should be able to even put it immediately after the h1 element, because the h1 element will have loaded. So by the time you execute the script, anyways, okay, I'm going on too much. Sorry. Save that, come back here, and there we go. So you see it's blue because by the time this script loads, is executed, this h1 element will have already loaded in the browser. Formed part of this page's dome structure. So these are the sort of things that you can do, and just to kind of like inspire you in our journey, or to give you a further of a sneak preview of some of the things that we'll be able to do. I'll probably teach you this trick in a later element. It's a slightly complex. You need to have grasped JavaScript a little bit in order for you to understand it. But in any case, so just to further show you the power of the web developer tools, because not only can you actually open your own page and do this, you can do this with other websites. For instance, if we come over to Facebook, there's my Facebook. You notice how my Facebook is green, right? You won't really necessarily see this every time you get to other people's Facebook pages. By the way, you noticed it started off as the normal blue, but then it turned green. That's because I have a script that I created in my whoa, what's happening with this guy? Anyways, I digress. I have a script that I have I've installed in my Chrome browser, which targets Facebook, and then it targets my Facebook, by the way. So it's a harmless hack that's only for me. I don't want Facebook coming after me. So it targets it and goes change all those places that are blue, or a number of those places that are blue, change it to green. Or I could have chosen any color, but I chose green because that thing, it looks cool. And anyways, so how did I go about doing this? The first thing that I did is I opened the developer tools. Whoa, look at Facebook's dome. It's so massive, and a lot of things are already compressed. So if I click over this thing, and then I just hovered somewhere on this bar, and then I kept on going up. You notice it highlights. That's a small section over there. Notice what it's highlighting as I move up. And then I just wanted to finally see, okay, this looks like it's a high enough place. This encompasses this whole area, top area. And then that allowed me to see that, okay, this is the class name for this top place. So I knew that whatever script I had to create it using this rule. And then I was then able to target it. Same thing for the Y words over here. I saw, okay, those are A elements. So I just have to target A elements. So my script that I created, which runs every time that a the Facebook page in particular loads, will execute and change that area. You notice that at first it's blue, and then my script executes as soon as the page loads, and then it turns everything to green. So that's why those are the sort of things that you can actually be able to do once you master or gain a certain level to whatever degree mastery over web developer tools. Close my Facebook and get over here. So just to recap, what have we learned? We've learned that when a web page, as we can see here, this simple page, is loaded into a browser, the browser creates a DOM representative data object model of the page. And then this DOM is then able to be affected using JavaScript. And on top of that, we can come over here, open web developer tools, and start playing around with the page so that we can see that, okay, if I change this, this is what will happen. If I do this, this is what will happen. And then after we see that, okay, this is kind of like what I want, we can go back to the original page and then write those changes that we want, because we saw how it will look on the browser. So yeah, my people, in a nutshell, that's the DOM, simply put, and as well, that's your introduction into web developer tools. And by the way, I spoke about this third tab. You'll notice that in the third tab, it actually shows you the files, the actual files that have been downloaded. If, for instance, we had JavaScript files or CSS files that were referenced in the page, it would also download those files as well, and then we would see them also referenced here. The network tab, just to give you maybe another thing, the network shows you things as they download. So every time your browser goes and says, go fetch something, so even though this file is in my computer, it still has to be the browser still has to go and look for wherever it is in my computer, or even if it was somewhere in another place, in another website across on the other side of the globe, in a server somewhere, it would still go and fetch it, and then I would come here in the network and I could actually view it as that page downloads. You see it says finish. Usually it would go in progress or something like that as the page downloads. So there's a bunch of things that you will learn. We'll go through most of these things as we go on in our tutorials on web development. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. Next up, we'll be learning about hypertext links. Later!
You can watch other tutorials over here, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on tutorials as they come out. Have you subscribed? Are you done? Okay, cool.